All right, so in this one, we're going to try to create a dependent dropdown. So what I mean by that, I'm going to add a column here. I'll say item category. And basically, I want two dropdowns. The first dropdown should be what category of item we should have. So we'll do something like fruits, vegetables. And then the second dropdown should give us options for the second column, which is what type of fruit or vegetable that is. So first of all, let me get some options here. So I'm gonna create a column here. So let's go back and do some changes to our code. First of all, we need to make sure now we have 4 columns instead of 3, which is what we have in our code right now. So if I go back to my code and look at my functions, see when I add a new row, in here we add the item, quantity, and current date. Now we need to make sure we also accept that category. So now that we got this and we got the category, the next thing we need to make sure is that when we get the data for this, we don't just receive this first column. We want to get this entire range of data, which means it's going to be 2 columns now instead of 1. So if I go back here, so it's going to be starting from row 2, column 1. So all of this is going to be the same. We're just going to get 2 columns. So that's that. So on the back side, I think that will take care of it. Now let's go to our form, and this is where we're going to have to do a lot of changes. Now, first thing is, well, we're still going to do this. When the content loads, we're going to run this thing after sidebar loads, which is this thing. So that's going to run our function get dropdown array, and it's going to return basically array of that range. So basically all these values. Now then we're going to run this after dropdown array return function, which is this thing. Now only this time we need to fill up a new item here first, which is going to be the category. So first I'm going to put the category here on top. So let's go back and do that. So let's scroll up. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and just create another one right above like this. So this will be item category. So now this should create another dropdown, which should be item category. And what we need to happen initially when the whole thing loads, we need to fill up that first one on top. That's going to be the item category. So that means after we get this and we run this after dropdown array returned, which is this function, we don't want to fill up the names. We want to fill up the categories. And pretty much that's that. So let's save this and see what happens. So if I go back and reload this, now we have item category. And as you can see, it has fruits and veggies, but it basically picked up this entire thing with all the options. So we don't have a unique list. We just basically have this entire group. We need to make sure we convert this to a unique list. So it only shows one item once. So I'm going to go back to this. So in order for me to do this, I'm going to create a variable here. And it's going to be an empty array. And what I'm going to do with this empty array, every time that I run this, I'm going to add the item that I just did add to this currently added array. So to do that, I'm going to go right below this line where we add the actual item and say, let's take the currently added array and push to it. And what we're going to be pushing to that is that current value, which is going to be R0 again. When we run it for the first time and we, let's say, have fruits, we're going to run this and put fruits in our list. and add that fruits item. And then we're going to add fruits to this list of our currently added items. Now, what we can do next time when we come back to this, we can check if that item is already in this list that we're trying to add the next time. So if it's fruits, we can check if it's already in this list. Let's not actually add it. So that means I'm going to just put this entire thing here in an if statement. I'm going to say if, open bracket here and close it right in here. Let's just indent this. So I'm going to take this currently added array and I'm going to do index of. So index of is going to search for the item in this array. So the item I'm going to search is going to be that same R0 item. So when I search for that, if it's in this list, it will give me index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, basically the position where it was able to find it in the list. It's first one in our currently added list, or second one, or third one. And when it's not able to find this, it's going to give me -1. So basically I can say, if I search in this list and it equals to -1, then I'm going to know that it's not in the list right now. So if it's not in the list right now, let's go ahead and add it to the list. And then we'll add to our currently added list. So the next time when we check for the same thing, it will find out that it's already in the list and not added the next time. So let's just save this and go back and see what happens when we do this. Open that, and now you see we have fruits, vegetables. Now we got just unique items instead of pushing every single one of this to the list. Now what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to move this part that I did, this adding to our list, to a function, because I'm probably going to need this same type of stuff when I'm populating this item dropdown as well. So let's go ahead and create that function. So that's going to be my crazy function name. And this function is going to accept two things. It's basically going to accept the actual item or the dropdown, whatever we're going to call this. And it's going to also accept a list or an array, which is coming from here. So basically that function needs to do all of this stuff that we did here. I'm going to copy all of that. That's going to be my function. And I'm going to pass a few arguments to this function. So one of the arguments I'm going to pass is the array of arrays. I'm going to also pass the item. I'll probably make the item first. And then the last thing I'm going to do is the index. And that index is going to be this column number. So see, it's 0 here. So I'm going to just do index, 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 instead of that 0. Now I'm going to try to use that function down here instead of using all this code. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to erase all of this and then replace it with this function. And in this function, we're going to have the item, which is this. We're going to have the array of arrays, which is this. And we're going to have the index, which is going to be 0, which was the first column. So hopefully, if this whole thing is done correctly, it should work exactly the same way as it did before. So I'm going to save this and go back and reload. And it works the same way. So that's good news. So now this creates our first dropdown. Now we need to create our second dropdown based on this. So after this is selected, we need to now populate the second dropdown that has the item name. Let's create a function for it. I will have to now populate the second dropdown, and for that, I'm going to need a couple of things. So a few things here are going to be the same. We still need that second dropdown. Okay, so this time it's going to be the item name, and we're still going to pass to this. Now we need array of arrays, which is not going to be available here because we have it here in this function, but that variable is not going to travel magically to this function, so we need to somehow get that in here. And we also need to make sure that when we do get that array, we now get our values from this column, not this column, which is going to be the second column, which is with 0 index, it's 1. Probably the most important part is how we're going to get this array of arrays. Now, there are a couple of ways we can do that. One way we can do this, we can again call back to this get dropdown array function and get this list again from our spreadsheet. But that's probably not a very good idea because we don't need to call the spreadsheet every time to get the same list. So instead, maybe we should be just storing it someplace globally here so we can access it anytime. What I'm going to do, I'll just go here someplace and set a variable. Now, once I have this global variable, I'm going to copy this and scroll down. And I want it to be set over here. So I'm going to take that and I want it to be a copy of this. Now, I can't just make it equal to this because it's just going to set a reference. We want a copy of this. So we should be able to create a copy by mapping through that array of arrays. And we'll pass a callback function. Actually, I'll probably just use filter. It will be easy. And I'll take each row and I'll return true. So that just means we want to return everything. So we're filtering, but not filtering this. So this filter will just allow us to make a copy of this. So then once I have a copy of this, I'm going to try to copy that and then use that array of values in here in the second function, which we should also be able to use now here as well. Now, what we're going to do here, we're just going to filter that. So the way we're going to filter it, we need to first figure out what category is selected. So I'm going to take this and get the value in that category dropdown. So what we want to do, we want to take this array of values and filter it to that particular category. So to do that, we're going to take that array of values and we're going to do a filter. And in this filter, we're going to pass a callback function. And that callback function is going to return each row from our array. And we only need to return the rows where the category, and category is first column, so where R0 equals to the category. Now we're going to have to save this in an array. And then we're going to pass that filtered array to this. Save it. Now, one other thing I probably want to do, I don't want this to be selected as veggies to begin with. I want it to be a blank option. So I'll just go to my original dropdown and have this first option as a blank. So basically no value selected. So if I save this now and reload this, it will show like this, and then you'll pick whatever you want to select out of here. All right, good. So now assuming we're going to select one of these, after we select fruits, we need to run that function so it populates these items. And that's what we're going to add to this. We're going to add another event listener. And we're trying to look when people are selecting this category. So the ID for that is item category. So when we change that item category, we want to run this after first dropdown changed function. So I'm going to save this. Let's go back and check what happened. So no item name. I'm going to go to category. We have fruits and veggies. I'm going to go to fruits. See now, if I look here, it says apples, bananas, grapes, oranges. And if I change this to veggies, well, now it has also carrots, onions, and potatoes. And if I go to fruits again, now it's adding them again. So basically, we keep adding to our existing drop-down list every time. So we don't want to keep adding. We want to clear the list and then add to the list. So the function that was handling this entire thing is this. We pass the item, which the item was basically the element. Maybe we should call it an element. I'm going to call it EL. And then I'm going to do it in here too. That's the element. Instead of doing all of this, we want to be able to first clear whatever's in that select dropdown already, and then populate all of these items. So I'm just going to take that element and set the inner HTML to be blank before I add all the stuff to it. You know what? I probably misspelled HTML wrong here. That should be uppercase. Let's try this again. I'm gonna go fruits. That gives me these. I go veggies. Now I get these. Now I go again to fruits. It gives me this. Now the problem that was happening here, see, because we're clearing that list and this drop down is populated using that list, we no longer get the blank options. So when I went in here and I did this option, well, that option doesn't happen anymore. So I'm going to cut that out of here and then go back to this. There are millions of ways we could handle this, but I'm just going to pass it as the inner HTML as the first default option again. Save this. So let's go check this out. If I go back and run this, these are blank. If I go and check fruits, this gives me options for fruits. Again, the first one is blank. If I go to veggies, this gives me the option for veggies. If I go to fruits, again, we got the options. Now that's one way to do this, I guess. Or the other way, maybe you don't want this blanks. Let's do that. So I'll just remove this options thing. So we'll simply just clear the list. So if I save this now and go back, what's going to happen now is that it's going to populate fruits, but we're not going to have fruits options here until we actually change this to something else to get the options. So we need to make sure that we initially filter this and load this item name list as well when we'll load this fruits list. So we're going to go back to this. And that second list that we are basically doing, it's this after first dropdown list changed. That's where this entire thing happened. So what I could do, I could just copy that function. And after we do the dropdown and we populate all this unique option list, then we can also immediately after that, once we get the categories, run this function too. So we can also fill up all the second level categories. So I'm going to save this. Let's go check it out. See, we have fruits, apples. If I check here, we have apple, banana, oranges. Here we have fruits. If I change it to veggies, that gives us our veggies. And now we can basically use this to populate these results. Let's just test this. Apparently we don't put fruits where it needs to go. Let's go fix that too. So I think I forgot to pass that to our data. So after the button is clicked, we get the item quantity to pass it to this, but we're not getting the category. So we should probably do all of these as a different variable so we don't have to set this every time. But again, I'm trying to make these tutorials in a way that you can understand them if you're new to this. So category, item category. So I'm going to take this, pass it as the first argument. Category, colon, category.value, comma, and then item, item value, and then quantity, quantity value. So we're going to add this to this list we're passing to our data. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Now let's do something else. So in the next tutorial, we'll probably add a little bit of message here when we click to add item when the item goes through. We'll also make sure we do a little bit of verification. So right now, if I don't enter any quantity and I click add, see, it's still gonna add the line. So we wanna make sure we do some validation. So that will be our next tutorial, but for this one, that should be it. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.